What steps should be taken when evacuating animals from an area affected by a natural disaster to ensure their safety and well-being during the evacuation process? Provide specific guidelines or protocols that must be followed. Answer: when evacuating animals during a disaster, the primary goal is to minimize stress, prevent injury, and ensure proper containment. Key steps include prioritization. Animals should be evacuated based on their vulnerability. For example, small, easily transportable animals should be evacuated first, followed by larger or more difficult to handle animals. Containment: animals must be contained in secure crates or carriers. For larger animals, use sturdy halters and ropes. Transport: use appropriate transport vehicles that are well ventilated and ensure animals are secure to prevent injury during transit. The vehicles should be familiar to the animals to reduce stress. Veterinary care: ensure that all animals have access to necessary medical care, such as sedation if required for particularly stressed or aggressive animals and medications for those with pre-existing conditions. Legal and ethical considerations: follow local animal welfare laws and regulations, e.g., our SPCA guidelines, local emergency protocols, for example, ensuring that animals are not left in unsafe conditions as stipulated in the Animal Welfare Act 2006 is essential. Evacuation protocols often align with national disaster response plans, and in Australia, for example, the National Animal Welfare Disaster Management Guidelines would be referenced to help guide evacuation procedures. Explain the importance of socializing animals to human interaction and describe the consequences if this process is not managed properly. Answer: socializing animals to human interaction is critical for their emotional and behavioral development. Proper socialization helps animals adjust to human presence, reducing fear and aggression, which can lead to dangerous situations. When socialized appropriately, animals are more likely to exhibit calm, cooperative behavior during handling, which is crucial for both animal welfare and handler safety. Consequences of poor socialization: increased fear and aggression. Without proper socialization, animals may become fearful or aggressive towards humans, leading to potential injury to both the animal and handlers. Behavioral problems: lack of socialization can cause behavioral issues such as separation anxiety, destructive behaviors, and refusal to engage with humans, making future handling more challenging. Safety risks: fearful or aggressive animals pose a safety risk in situations like veterinary visits, training, or emergency evacuations, as they may react unpredictably under stress. Mr. Thompson is a handler at an animal shelter, and he is tasked with evacuating a large number of dogs during a flood warning. Some of the dogs are displaying aggressive behavior due to the stress of the situation, and others are frightened, attempting to escape their kennels. What strategies should Mr. Thompson use to manage the dogs effectively while ensuring their safety and the safety of other personnel? Answer: in this situation, Mr. Thompson must use a combination of calm handling techniques, proper containment, and safety measures. Here's a step-by-step approach. Stay calm. Mr. Thompson should remain calm and avoid displaying anxiety, as animals can sense stress and become more agitated. Handling aggressive dogs: aggressive dogs should be managed by using secure leashes or harnesses, and handlers should maintain a safe distance to prevent bites or injuries. If needed, a muzzle could be used, but only if the dog is trained to wear one safely. Securing frightened dogs: frightened dogs that are attempting to escape should first be contained in secure pens or crates. To reduce their stress, the environment should be quiet and free of sudden movements. Handlers can use gentle, reassuring voices to calm them down. Team coordination: if multiple staff members are available, coordinating efforts to handle groups of dogs will prevent any individual from becoming overwhelmed. Designate specific tasks, such as moving dogs, securing doors, and providing medical treatment if necessary. Evacuation vehicles: ensure that the dogs are transported in vehicles designed for animal safety, such as vans or trucks with crates that are stable, well ventilated. Aggressive dogs should be isolated in separate crates, and frightened dogs should be placed in quiet, low-traffic areas of the vehicle. Monitoring health and welfare: Mr. Thompson should monitor each dog's health during the evacuation, including checking for signs of distress, dehydration, or injury, and providing first aid as needed. Following standard evacuation protocols and safety guidelines will ensure that both the animals and personnel remain safe during this emergency. Discuss the legal requirements for handling aggressive animals in public spaces, particularly when there is a risk to public safety. What considerations must be taken into account by the handler, and what should be done to mitigate risks? Answer: when handling aggressive animals in public spaces, handlers must comply with both animal welfare laws and public safety regulations. In Australia, the Animal Welfare Act 2006 requires that animals are treated humanely while also ensuring that the safety of the public is not compromised. Considerations for handling aggressive animals: identification of risk. The handler must assess whether the animal poses a direct threat to public safety. This includes evaluating the animal's behavior, prior history of aggression, and current state, e.g., stressed or territorial. Control measures: animals should be kept on a leash in a secure crate or contained within a controlled area to prevent unpredictable movements. The use of muzzles may be required for highly aggressive animals. Communication with the public: handlers should inform the public of the animal's presence and ensure that people maintain a safe distance. Warning signs or barriers might be used in public spaces to alert people of potential dangers. Emergency protocols: handlers should be trained in emergency protocols for dealing with animal attacks, including first aid for both humans and animals. In the event of an attack, immediate medical attention should be sought for the injured party, and the animal should be isolated and assessed by a veterinarian. Legal compliance: handlers must ensure they are in compliance with local regulations regarding the control of dangerous animals. For example, in some areas, aggressive animals may need to be muzzled by law. In public spaces, a handler must always act within the guidelines of the Animal Management Cats and Dogs Act 2008, which regulates the containment and behavior management of aggressive animals to prevent public harm. What are the key elements of animal containment in disaster situations, and why is it critical to implement proper containment strategies in order to prevent further harm to the animals involved? Answer: animal containment in disaster situations is crucial to ensure that animals remain safe, secure, and accounted for during emergencies. Proper containment prevents escape, injury, or harm to the animals and helps maintain control in chaotic environments. Key elements of containment: secure enclosures. Enclosures should be made from materials that are strong enough to withstand environmental stress, such as flooding or strong winds. They should be large enough to allow animals to move, but small enough to prevent escape. Identification: all animals should have clear identification, such as microchips or tags, to prevent misidentification if separated during the disaster. Segregation of species: animals should be separated according to species or temperament. For instance, aggressive animals should be isolated from others to prevent fights. Minimizing stress: containment areas should provide animals with as much comfort as possible, such as access to food, water, and shelter. Minimize exposure to loud noises or chaotic environments that may increase stress levels. Veterinary support: contained animals should have access to emergency veterinary care, especially if they are injured, ill, or require medication. Proper containment also reduces the risk of animals being exposed to dangerous conditions such as toxic chemicals or extreme weather, as stated in National Disaster Management Guidelines for Animal Welfare. Explain the process of desensitizing animals to new environments and experiences. Why is this process important, and how can it prevent behavioral issues in the future? Answer: desensitizing animals to new environments and experiences is an essential part of their emotional and behavioral development. Gradual exposure to new stimuli allows animals to adjust to changes without becoming overly stressed or fearful. Process of desensitization: gradual exposure. Start by introducing the animal to the new experience in small, manageable increments. For instance, if the animal is scared of loud noises, begin by playing a low-volume recording of the sound and gradually increase the volume over time. Positive reinforcement: reward the animal with treats or praise when they show calm behavior in response to the new experience. This reinforces positive associations. Controlled environment: begin the desensitization process in a controlled, low-stress environment before gradually increasing the complexity or intensity of the experience. Repetition: repeat the exposure frequently, ensuring that the animal becomes comfortable with the new situation before moving on to more challenging experiences. Monitoring stress levels: it is essential to monitor the animal's behavior and stress levels. If the animal shows signs of severe stress or fear, the process should be slowed down and re-evaluated. Desensitization is particularly important for preventing future behavioral issues such as anxiety, aggression, or fear-related responses. According to the Animal Welfare Sentience Act 2022, all animals are entitled to live free from unnecessary stress, and desensitization supports this principle by promoting mental well-being. How does an animal's social behavior change in a multi-animal environment, and what strategies can be implemented to ensure the well-being of all animals involved? Answer: in a multi-animal environment, social behavior can be influenced by factors such as hierarchy, territoriality, and the species of the animals involved. Animals must navigate their relationships with others, which can lead to aggression, dominance struggles, or bonding. Strategies for managing social behavior: monitoring interactions. Handlers should observe the animals closely to identify early signs of stress, aggression, or fear. These behaviors should be addressed promptly to avoid escalation. Space and resources. Ensure that animals have sufficient space and resources, food, water, shelter to prevent competition and aggression. Separate housing. In cases of conflict, certain animals may need to be separated to prevent injury. This is particularly important for animals with incompatible temperaments or species that have different social needs. Positive socialization. Encourage positive social interactions by using treats and positive reinforcement when animals display cooperative behavior. Training. Implement training programs that teach animals how to interact appropriately with others. For instance, basic obedience training can reduce aggressive tendencies. What are the key components of emergency medical treatment for animals, and why is it important to have a trained handler in charge during emergency situations? Answer: emergency medical treatment for animals is crucial in disaster or crisis situations where injuries or medical conditions may arise. Trained handlers must be equipped with the knowledge and skills to administer immediate care. Key components of emergency medical treatment: first aid kits. Ensure that first aid kits are stocked with supplies such as bandages, antiseptics, splints, and tools for controlling bleeding. Basic life support (BLS). Handlers should be trained in animal CPR, including how to check vital signs, e.g., heart rate, breathing, and the appropriate methods for performing CPR on different animal species. Wound care. Clean and dress any wounds to prevent infection. Handlers should also assess for signs of internal injuries such as difficulty breathing or limping. Shock management. Recognizing signs of shock, e.g., rapid breathing, weak pulse, and administering fluids or medications as needed. Veterinary support. Handlers should know when to seek professional veterinary help, especially for severe injuries or illnesses that require specialized care. How can animal-human interaction safety be ensured when dealing with animals in public spaces, and what are the consequences of neglecting safety protocols? Answer: ensuring animal-human interaction safety involves a range of strategies designed to protect both the public and the animals themselves. Handlers must be aware of the risks involved and take appropriate precautions to prevent accidents. Safety protocols. Leashing and containment. All animals should be securely leashed or contained in a crate when in public areas to prevent unexpected movements. Warning signs. Use clear signage to inform the public of potential risks, especially when dealing with aggressive or unfamiliar animals. Handler training. Handlers should be trained in safe handling practices, including how to approach, restrain, and communicate with animals safely. Behavior assessment. Prior to public interaction, animals should be assessed for their temperament and health status to ensure they are fit for engagement. Failure to adhere to safety protocols can lead to injuries, both for the animals and the public. Why is it crucial to develop animal evacuation protocols in advance, and what factors must be considered when planning for animal evacuations during emergencies? Answer: developing animal evacuation protocols in advance is essential to ensure that animals can be safely and efficiently moved during emergencies. Having a clear practice plan reduces chaos and improves response times, ultimately saving lives. Key factors to consider: animal types and needs. Different animals have different evacuation requirements, e.g., livestock versus pets. Their size, temperament, and medical needs must be taken into account. Available resources. Ensure that sufficient transport vehicles, crates, and equipment are available to handle the evacuation. Specialized equipment may be required for larger animals or those with specific medical needs. Training and roles. All personnel involved should be trained in evacuation protocols. Specific roles should be assigned to ensure a smooth, coordinated effort. Safety measures. Consider the safety of handlers, animals, and the public during evacuation. For example, minimizing exposure to hazardous conditions or stressful situations is critical. Post-evacuation care. Have a plan in place for the ongoing care of evacuated animals, including veterinary support, food, water, and shelter. What are the critical steps in assessing the risks associated with handling cattle in a confined space, and how would you mitigate these risks? Answer: when assessing risks related to cattle handling in confined spaces, consider factors such as the cattle's behavior, the layout of the pen, and the handling equipment's suitability. Risk assessment. Behavioral risks. Cattle can become stressed or agitated when confined, leading to potential injuries. Recognize signs of stress such as increased vocalization or rapid movements. Physical risks. In confined spaces, cattle may be at risk of slipping, tripping, or being struck by gates or posts. Ensure that the floor is non-slippery and the gates are securely fastened. Equipment risks. Ensure that gates and chutes are in good condition and designed to prevent injury to both the handler and the cattle. Mitigation. Train handlers to recognize signs of stress and employ calming techniques, such as slow movements and minimal noise. Ensure adequate space for the cattle to move and prevent crowding. Use appropriate tools, e.g. cattle prods only when necessary and with caution. Which behavioral cues should be observed when handling an unfamiliar dog on a leash, and how should you adjust your technique to ensure safety for both the dog and the handler? Answer: when handling an unfamiliar dog on a leash, the following behavioral cues should be monitored. Signs of stress. The dog may display signs of anxiety such as tail tucking, avoidance behavior, or excessive panting. Aggression signs: look for raised hackles, growling, showing teeth, or stiff body posture, which could indicate that the dog feels threatened. Relaxed behavior. A calm dog may have a wagging tail, relaxed posture, and be comfortable with human interaction. Leash handling technique. If the dog is displaying anxiety or aggression, adjust by maintaining a safe distance, avoiding direct eye contact, and using a calm, soothing voice to reduce tension. Ensure the leash is held firmly to prevent sudden movements but without pulling, which may provoke the dog. Use a harness instead of a collar if the dog is prone to pulling or if the collar may cause discomfort. Mr. Patterson is working with a herd of pigs in a pen. During a routine check, one of the pigs begins to show signs of aggression, charging at the fence and causing damage to the enclosure. What steps should Mr. Patterson take to ensure the safety of himself and the animals? Answer: in this scenario, Mr. Patterson should follow these steps. Assess the situation. Quickly assess the pig's behavior. Aggressive pigs may charge, bite, or display other signs of aggression such as loud grunting or ear flattening. Maintain safe distance. Maintain a safe distance from the pig, especially if it's charging or acting aggressively. Move slowly to avoid startling it further. Secure the environment. Check the integrity of the pen to ensure no other pigs can escape or be injured. If necessary, temporarily block off the aggressive pig's access to the rest of the herd. Use appropriate equipment. If available, use a solid barrier or pen gate to keep a safe distance between yourself and the pig. Never attempt to physically restrain an aggressive pig without proper training or equipment. Call for assistance. Contact a more experienced handler or animal control if necessary to manage the situation safely. Post-incident actions. Once the situation is under control, check for any injuries to both animals and handlers. Ensure that the environment is secure and that the aggressive pig is monitored. What are the most important factors to consider when performing a risk assessment in a veterinary clinic setting where both large and small animals are handled? Answer: when performing a risk assessment in a veterinary clinic, consider the following: animal type and behavior. Different species exhibit varying levels of risk. Large animals, e.g. horses or cattle, pose different risks compared to smaller animals, e.g. cats or rabbits. Horses may be more prone to kicking, while cats may scratch or bite when stressed. Clinic layout. The design of the clinic should ensure clear pathways for animals to be moved safely without causing stress. Avoid overcrowding in waiting areas and ensure that animals are kept in separate enclosures to prevent conflicts. Handling equipment. Ensure that all equipment, such as leashes, collars, and restraint devices, is appropriate for the species and in good working condition. Infection control. Ensure that sanitation procedures are in place to prevent the spread of infectious diseases between animals and staff. Training and procedures. Staff should be well trained in handling various animal species and familiar with emergency protocols in case of animal aggression or medical issues. Regulatory guidelines. Adhere to the Australian animal welfare standards and guidelines for both small and large animals to minimize the risk of injury or stress to the animals during handling. What are the most effective techniques for safely restraining a cat for a medical examination, and what are the risks of improper restraint? Answer: to safely restrain a cat for a medical examination. Soft restraint techniques. Use a towel or blanket to gently wrap the cat, leaving its head exposed. This provides comfort and prevents sudden movements. Always keep the cat's head and body in alignment to avoid injury. Handling with minimal stress. Speak calmly and slowly to the cat and avoid sudden movements that may startle it. Gently hold the cat's body, ensuring its legs are restrained to prevent it from scratching or biting. Use of muzzles. In some cases, a soft muzzle may be required to prevent biting, especially if the cat is highly stressed or aggressive. Risks of improper restraint. If the cat is improperly restrained, it may panic, leading to self-injury or biting. Improper restraint may also cause stress-related injuries such as muscle strain or broken bones. Regulatory guidelines. Follow the RSPCA guidelines for humane and safe restraint practices, which emphasize minimizing stress and injury during handling. What are the unique challenges associated with handling reptiles, and what specific protocols should be followed to ensure safety for both the handler and the animal? Answer: handling reptiles presents unique challenges due to their varied species-specific needs and behaviors. Challenges: temperature sensitivity. Many reptiles require specific temperature ranges for their health and safety. Sudden temperature changes during handling can cause stress or harm to the animal. Biting risks. Some reptiles, such as snakes or lizards, may bite as a defensive behavior when feeling threatened. Fragility. Reptiles, especially smaller species, can be easily injured if mishandled. Protocols. Always ensure that reptiles are handled in a controlled environment with the proper temperature and humidity. Use gloves or appropriate protective equipment when handling potentially dangerous species such as venomous snakes or large lizards. Support the reptile's body appropriately, ensuring that no part of the animal is dangling or unsupported. When leading a sheep in a pen, what are the best practices to ensure the safety of both the handler and the animal? Answer. Best practices for safely leading a sheep in a pen include use a lead rope. Attach a lead rope to the sheep's halter to maintain control and avoid sudden movements. Gentle pressure. Use gentle pressure on the lead rope to guide the sheep rather than pulling, which could cause panic. Calm environment. Ensure the environment is calm and free of loud noises that could startle the sheep. Avoid overcrowding. Ensure that the pen is not overcrowded, which could cause the sheep to become stressed and difficult to handle. Safety guidelines. According to animal welfare standards, handlers must ensure that the pen is secure and that the sheep are not exposed to undue stress or injury. Always be aware of the sheep's body language, such as ear position, which can indicate its level of stress. MS. Taylor is a zookeeper handling a group of exotic birds. During routine maintenance of the aviary, one bird becomes agitated and attempts to escape through an open window. What steps should MS. Taylor take to safely manage the situation? Answer. MS. Taylor should remain calm and assess the situation. Assess the level of stress in the bird. If it is agitated but not yet escaping, attempt to calm it using gentle voice tones or by offering familiar food. Secure the aviary. If the bird is attempting to escape, quickly but calmly close any access points such as windows or doors to prevent it from getting further outside. Safe capture. If the bird has already escaped, use a net or capture box to gently coax it back into a secure area. Ensure that any movement is slow to avoid frightening the bird further. Monitor for injuries. Once the bird is safe, check for any signs of injury. Ensure it is returned to its enclosure calmly. Regulatory guidelines. Follow animal welfare standards for exotic animals, which stress the need to minimize panic and maintain control over the animal in an emergency situation. What are the most important factors to consider when grooming a horse to ensure both safety and comfort for the animal? Answer. When grooming a horse, consider the following. Comfort. Ensure that the grooming tools are clean and free from sharp edges that could cause injury. Approach the horse calmly. Approach the horse from the front or side, never from behind, to avoid startling it. Grooming technique. Start with a curry comb to loosen dirt, followed by a dandy brush to remove the dirt. Finish with a soft brush to smooth the coat. Sensitive areas. Be gentle around sensitive areas such as the face, ears, and belly. Safety guidelines. Always tie the horse securely in a safe location before grooming. Follow safety protocols outlined by the Horse Safety Association. What are the critical considerations when transporting pigs to a new location, and how can stress be minimized during the process? Answer. When transporting pigs, ensure the following. Appropriate transport vehicle. Use a well-ventilated, secure trailer designed for pigs to ensure their safety and comfort. Avoid overcrowding. Ensure there is enough space in the trailer for each pig to stand and lie down comfortably. Minimize stress. Avoid sudden loud noises and abrupt movements that could cause stress. Provide bedding or mats to make the journey more comfortable. Water access. Ensure the pigs have access to water during the journey. Regulatory guidelines. Follow the Australian standards for the transport of livestock, which outline the proper conditions for transporting pigs to ensure their welfare during transport. What are the primary considerations when loading and unloading animals to ensure their safety and well-being, and how do transport regulations support these considerations? Answer. When loading and unloading animals, safety is paramount to prevent injury or stress. Key considerations include animal behavior, understanding the behavior of different species to avoid sudden movements or aggression that could lead to injury. Loading equipment. Proper equipment such as ramps, crates, and hoists should be used to ensure animals can enter and exit safely. Handling techniques. Trained handlers should employ calm, controlled methods to guide animals, ensuring they are not rushed or frightened. Transport regulations such as the Australian Animal Welfare Standards and Guidelines 2018 focus on minimizing stress and injury during transportation. The standards include the Australian Standards for the Transport of Animals, the ASET, which specify requirements for safe loading procedures, adequate space, and appropriate ventilation. These regulations require operators to ensure animals are not exposed to extreme temperatures and are provided with sufficient food, water, and rest during long-distance transport. How can one assess whether an animal's housing and enclosure are appropriate for its species and needs? Provide examples of critical elements to consider in the assessment process. Answer: when assessing the appropriateness of housing for an animal, several factors must be considered. Space: the enclosure must provide enough space for the animal to move, freely exercise, and exhibit natural behaviors. Environmental enrichment: the habitat should support species-specific behaviors such as foraging, climbing, or burrowing. Temperature and humidity: different animals have specific requirements for temperature and humidity levels, which should be controlled based on their natural habitat. Safety and security: enclosures should prevent escape and protect animals from external threats. This includes secure fencing, appropriate locks, and materials that are escape-proof. Cleanliness: housing must be regularly cleaned to prevent the buildup of waste, pathogens, or pests. For example, a rabbit enclosure must provide enough room to hop freely, with hiding spots and non-toxic plants to chew. A reptile enclosure would require temperature gradients, warm and cool areas, and humidity control, mimicking the animal's natural environment. Sophie, a wildlife rescue volunteer, is responsible for transporting a group of injured birds over a 12-hour journey. The animals are to be transported in a crate designed for their size, but the crate does not provide sufficient airflow. Sophie is unsure if the transport regulations allow this. What should Sophie do in this situation to ensure the bird's safety and compliance with transport regulations? Answer: Sophie must adhere to the Australian Animal Welfare Standards and Guidelines 2018 for transportation, which outline the conditions necessary to ensure the safety and comfort of animals during transit. In this case, the lack of proper airflow in the crate could lead to stress, dehydration, or overheating, which violates these standards. To ensure compliance: ventilation. The crate must be modified or replaced with one that allows sufficient airflow to prevent suffocation and heat stress. Inspection. Before transport, Sophie should inspect the crate to ensure it meets all size, ventilation, and security requirements. Rest stops. If the journey exceeds several hours, regular stops should be scheduled to check the bird's condition and offer hydration as outlined in the ASE guidelines for long-distance animal transport. By addressing airflow concerns, Sophie ensures the bird's welfare and complies with transport regulations. What strategies can be used to minimize stress and discomfort for animals during transit, especially when transporting species with different environmental needs? Answer: minimizing stress and discomfort for animals during transit involves several strategies, including species-specific transport conditions. Different species have different needs for temperature, humidity, and light. For instance, reptiles require temperature-controlled environments while mammals need access to food and water. Comfortable crates. Use crates that are appropriate for the animal's size and species. Crates should allow animals to stand, turn around, and lie down comfortably as required by transport regulations. Travel time minimization. Where possible, travel time should be reduced to minimize stress. For longer journeys, stopovers should be planned for rest, feeding, and hydration. Behavioral conditioning. Some animals may be trained to become accustomed to transport, which can reduce anxiety. The Australian Animal Welfare Standards for the Transport of Animals emphasize these practices to ensure that animals are not exposed to unnecessary distress during transport. What is the role of basic obedience training in animal handling, and how does it contribute to the safety of both animals and handlers in a professional setting? Answer: basic obedience training establishes a foundation for animals to respond predictably to commands, ensuring both safety and control in various environments. Key benefits include safety. Well-trained animals are less likely to exhibit aggressive or unpredictable behaviors that could endanger handlers or other animals. Control. Obedience training allows handlers to guide animals more effectively during transportation or in enclosures, reducing the risk of injury. Stress reduction. Animals that are trained to respond to commands like sit, stay, or come are more likely to feel secure in their environment as they understand expectations and routines. Professionalism. For handlers, the ability to train animals improves their professionalism and competence in managing animals in various settings, such as wildlife rescue or farm environments. These principles align with the National Animal Welfare Standards, which emphasize the need for animals to be handled in a calm, controlled manner to minimize stress. Explain the concept of positive reinforcement in animal training and provide an example of how it can be effectively applied to train an animal to enter a transport crate. Answer: Positive reinforcement involves rewarding desired behavior to encourage its repetition. The reward can be food, praise, or play, depending on the animal's preferences. This training method is particularly effective because it motivates the animal by associating positive outcomes with desirable behaviors. For example, to train an animal to enter a transport crate, you could place the crate in the animal's environment and allow them to explore it. Gradually entice the animal with a treat or favorite toy placed inside the crate. Each time the animal enters the crate, immediately reward them with the treat or praise. Gradually increase the duration the animal spends in the crate before offering the reward. This method fosters a positive association with the crate, making the animal more willing to enter it in the future. What is the role of desensitization in animal conditioning, and how can it be applied to reduce an animal's fear of transport vehicles? Answer: desensitization is a process where animals are gradually exposed to a feared object or situation in a controlled and non-threatening manner to reduce their fear or anxiety. In the context of transport vehicles, gradual exposure begins by introducing the animal to the transport vehicle in a non-stressful environment, allowing them to explore it at their own pace. Positive association: pair the presence of the vehicle with rewards such as food or play to create a positive association. Incremental steps: initially, the animal may only be exposed to the vehicle from a distance, and over time, they are brought closer or allowed to enter briefly. The process should be slow, ensuring the animal does not feel overwhelmed. This method is grounded in behavioral science and aligns with animal welfare guidelines to reduce stress during transport. Describe how behavior modification strategies can be used to address an animal's aggressive behavior, and how would these strategies apply in a transport scenario? Answer: behavior modification involves changing an animal's behavior through systematic techniques, often based on operant conditioning. When addressing aggressive behavior, identify triggers, identify specific situations or stimuli that provoke aggression, use positive reinforcement, reward calm behavior, and ensure that the animal associates non-aggressive actions with positive outcomes. Desensitize to triggers. Gradually expose the animal to the situations that provoke aggression while ensuring they remain calm, rewarding them for non-aggressive behavior. In a transport scenario, for example, an animal that becomes aggressive when loaded into a crate could be gradually desensitized to the process, with the handler rewarding the animal for calm behavior at each stage, eventually making the transport process less stressful and safer. How does training an animal for specific tasks or handling improve its safety and performance in professional settings such as farms, zoos, or rescue operations? Answer: training animals for specific tasks enhances their ability to cooperate with handlers and perform necessary functions in environments such as farms or rescue operations. For example, on farms, livestock such as cattle may be trained to follow specific paths or enter holding pens, making management more efficient and safer. In zoos, animals like elephants or primates may be trained to participate in medical procedures voluntarily, reducing the risk of injury to both animal and handler. Rescue operations, animals trained to search for and identify injured wildlife can perform their duties more effectively, improving rescue outcomes. By teaching animals these specialized skills, the risk of mishandling and injury is minimized, ensuring both animal welfare and handler safety. What strategies should be implemented when transporting an animal that is highly anxious and resistant to confinement in a crate, and how can these strategies help ensure the animal's well-being and safety? Answer: when transporting an anxious animal, several strategies can help alleviate stress. Familiarization: gradually introduce the animal to the crate well before transport, ensuring it is familiar with its environment and reducing fear. Comfort items: place familiar items like bedding or toys inside the crate to provide comfort and reduce anxiety. Calming agents: if permissible, calming agents such as pheromone sprays can be used to reduce anxiety. Handling by trained professionals: handlers should be trained in techniques that minimize stress, such as maintaining a calm demeanor and using low-stress handling methods. These strategies ensure that the animal is not subjected to unnecessary stress, in accordance with the animal welfare standards, which emphasize the need to minimize discomfort and fear during transport.